Kettlebells are useless. I bet you use your dumbbell like a shake weight. Fellas, let's settle this debate once and for all. As someone with 12 years of experience coaching in the fitness space, I can say with confidence that both kettlebells and dumbbells are quite useful. And the usefulness of each training tool has less to do with the tool itself, but more importantly, how do you use each tool? But in order to determine which is the best, we have to understand what the major differences between a kettlebell and a dumbbell are in the first place. Now, the biggest difference between a kettlebell and a dumbbell has to do with the way that the weight is distributed. With a dumbbell, the weight is evenly distributed on either side of the handle, whereas with the kettlebell, the weight is distributed below the handle. And this weight distribution can make the same exercise feel very different. For example, with a standard single arm overhead press, no matter how you rotate your shoulder with a dumbbell, the weight will be evenly distributed, which provides a little more stability compared to a kettlebell, where stabilizers of the shoulder are forced to work harder due to the weight distribution around the joint constantly changing as your shoulder rotates, because the weight is only loaded on one side of the arm. And with the kettlebell, you can get more range of motion on the single arm overhead press because of this weight distribution, since your hand will actually travel down to collarbone height at the bottom of each rep. Whereas with a dumbbell, the weights on the outside of the handle will prevent you from going as low as you can with a kettlebell, as it will touch your shoulder before you're able to get to that depth. So the kettlebell is better? Well, not exactly. While there really isn't a difference between the two implements for something like a single arm row, I would actually say that dumbbells have the edge when it comes to most other upper body exercises, especially when it comes to assistance exercises like skull crushers, pec flies, bicep curls, and lateral raises, for instance. And the reason being, well, that weight distribution we talked about earlier with the kettlebell becomes a real cock blocker of gains with assistance exercises. For example, let's say you're trying to build jacked triceps and want to get a nice little pump with your kettlebell skull crushers. If you grab one kettlebell, the body of the bell limits your elbow flexion and therefore the stretch of your tricep. And if you're trying to add some mass to your arms or any other body part for that matter, not that part, the loading of that muscle in a stretched position is really important to increase its size. And if you use two kettlebells, that weight being distributed below the handle makes it a nightmare on your wrists. And that wrist being the weak link when using kettlebells during the skull crusher holds true for lateral raises, flies, and curls with kettlebells as well. But if we go back to our skull crusher example, but performed it with dumbbells, you'd have the freedom to slightly rotate them around your head to get the greatest degree of elbow flexion, which will maximize the stretch of the triceps and therefore the effectiveness of this exercise and the other assistance exercises previously mentioned. And while the weight distribution of the kettlebell is a disadvantage for many upper body assistance exercises, that same awkward weight distribution is a major advantage for something else. You see, where the kettlebell really shines is with full body ballistic exercises like swings, cleans, and snatches. And while you can perform these exercises with a dumbbell as well, you won't get the same benefit. And the reason being, anytime you distribute weight further from an axis of rotation, as in an exercise like a kettlebell swing, the force of gravity applied to said weight is going to make the weight feel heavier. So a 50-pound kettlebell will be more challenging to move than a 50-pound dumbbell, which is a similar concept to lifting a shovel by the end of the handle versus lifting it by the scoop. And because the weight is further away from the axis of rotation, which in a kettlebell swing we can say is our hips, you get to leverage the stretch reflex of the hamstrings when decelerating and reaccelerating the weight to a much greater degree than if you were to perform a swing with a dumbbell. And this gives kettlebells an advantage for developing explosive power over the dumbbell. However, if you are performing power exercises like a dead stop snatch, meaning you are starting each rep from the ground, a dumbbell is less technical because you don't have to worry about the hand insertion through the window of the handle like you do with a kettlebell to prevent weight from crashing into your arm, which is its own advantage for the dumbbell. So, as it turns out, deciding which tool is best is really hard. So here's my take. Which tool is best really depends on your specific goals. If your goal is to build as much muscle mass as possible, particularly on your upper body, I would go with dumbbells. But if you're looking for a blend of explosive power and general full body strength, I would go with the kettlebell, or better yet, leverage both tools where they shine because nobody said you had to choose one or the other. Personally, I prefer the kettlebell because I like the versatility that they provide for ballistic exercises and think they provide a nice blend of strength, conditioning, and power. However, I do love a good pump with the dumbbells every now and again. With that said, which of these tools do you prefer? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to learn how to leverage kettlebells to build lean muscle and build functional strength, check out this video here, and I'll see you on the next one.